Hello and welcome back to Sports Plays, brought to you by Tour Productions. If you love sports and sports debates, then this is the place for you. Today we're talking with one Division I football star and one who was a backup on his punt team on a winless high school squad as a senior.
Okay, all right. I see where you're going with that. Let me just say, the reason we were a winless squad is because I was a backup and not starting.
Obviously.
Had I been the starter,
let's go with that one.
Yeah.
I could have delivered straight up. I could have delivered like 4 or 5 wins straight up just off of me. But, the coaches couldn't see it. As Savon will tell you, it's always the coach's fault. They don't have a vision.
Hey, I can attest to that.
Right. They don't have a vision. You know what I'm saying? Savon will be playing, on the field on Sundays, in the NFL if the coaches had the vision, but they don't.
I'm telling you, man. They got to see, man.
Right.
Have you.
Okay, guys, let's talk boxing. Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound the best in the world, and he faces Billy Joe Saunders in May. Can he get past Avni this month, or what do you think?
Well, I'll start it off. I think he definitely gets past Yildirim this month. I never even heard of Yildirim, and I'm a pretty avid, boxing fan. So I think he definitely gets back Avni Yildirim, no disrespect, but I don't even know who that guy is. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen him before. So I think he gets past him. Now, Billy Joe Saunders is, he's a tough fighter, and he has a style where, he generally doesn't knock guys, blocks off. He doesn't knock guys out. But we're talking about a guy who is, who's won several championships in the amateurs. He was kind of a boxing prodigy. And then, we can look at his big wins. So I'm looking at his big wins. Martin Murray, David Lemieux, Willie Monroe Jr., Andy Lee, Chris Eubank Jr. Those are tough fighters, but they're not the kind of fighters that Canelo Alvarez has faced. I think that the style that Billy Joe Saunders brings is kind of elusive. It's very, very much a boxer. He's not, gonna get into a slugfest with you. He has a bunch of UDs on his record. He's not somebody who knocks guys clean out. And you would think that would be something that frustrates Canelo Alvarez, but people forget Canelo Alvarez is the best pound for pound boxer for one reason, or a couple of reasons. Number one, his defense is underrated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's an excellent defensive fighter. Then we have to understand that he is a boxer himself. I think there is a misunderstanding that Canelo, because he's knocked a few guys out, that he's just a knockout artist. And Canelo is a boxer who, if you make mistakes, has enough power to put you on your back. Yeah. But he's very much a pure boxer, excellent defensive skills. And we've only seen one fighter that's been able to frustrate him and dominate him, and that's Floyd Mayweather, who's frustrated and dominated everybody.
Everyone.
So, I'm thinking that this is not going to be much of a challenge for Canelo Alvarez. I think Canelo has some guys who are probably even better matchups, but I think Billy Joe Saunders deserves a chance. He deserves the payday. He's earned it, and I think it'll be a match that'll be worth watching.
Okay, coming from my point of view, like I said, before we even got onto the whole call and everything, I had to do my research on Billy Joe Saunders. He's not a guy that I fairly know. He's not one of those big names, like the Javante Davis, the Garcias. He's like one of those. He's not a household name just yet, in my opinion. Because like I said, I may not be the biggest in the boxing, but I love to watch, and I'm always watching, especially when the big fights come on. I don't hear his name that much, so I do my research. But from the research I've done, I can tell he is a good boxer, like you said. He had a lot of championships in the amateur bouts, but also he's undefeated. He's undefeated right now. So what can you say about undefeated fighters? You can't say they're not good. They haven't lost yet. But you're facing a different monster when you face Canelo. Like you said, it's been rounds where he didn't throw any punches, but his defense has made guys miss. And they say the hardest thing in boxing is to make the other guy miss. So Canelo is a guy who's going to go in there. He's going to dominate. He's going to watch him. He's going to play around a few rounds, but Canelo's going to dominate. There's no chance. Sorry. Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo's here. Billy Joe's there. Sorry.
I honestly, I follow Billy Joe Saunders' career to a certain degree. And I think Billy Joe Saunders, there are other people that Billy Joe Saunders could have fought. You know, somebody like her, and I think Canelo could fight these people too. But there's been somebody who's been calling out Billy Joe Saunders for a long time. I happen to be a fan of this fighter. He's from Providence, Rhode Island, which is, I have some family up in that area, Providence and Boston. And it's a guy named Demetrius Andrade. And I think Demetrius Andrade has been calling out Billy Joe Saunders forever. And Billy Joe Saunders has looked in every direction than that Demetrius Andrade, who is also undefeated. And none of these guys will fight him or give him a big fight, including the Charlo brothers. He's called them out, you know. And I understand where I heard Jermell Charlo one time be like, you know, he's like, I don't like him, so I'm gonna let him starve, you know, which I understand that way of thinking. But in boxing, it's so much about a challenge that you got a guy who has belts and an undefeated record, and he's calling you out to fight. To me, it sounds like they should fight. And neither one of them is a huge name, but everybody's kind of been freezing, you know, Andrade out. And I think Billy Joe Saunders should have fought him. But I can't blame him for taking the payday, but he's also going to take a butt whooping along with that payday. I think Canelo, I think him and Andrade would have been a great fight. I think Canelo is the best fighter in boxing, and that's no disrespect to guys like Terrence Crawford and you know, some of these other guys out there that also vie for that number one spot. But Canelo is a different animal. He's gone, you know, up and down in weight, and he's just beating everybody up. So I think he's the best fighter in boxing.
I'm gonna agree with Jason on this one. Actually, we all agree. Canelo's the best. But okay, so real quick, because we only have a few minutes left. So what fight would you want to see in 2021?
You know, I would say that I would like to see, you know, Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. I think that's a fight a lot of us want to see. I would like to see Teofimo, and I would like to see him fight Devin Haney. That lightweight division is one of the, you know, top divisions in boxing. So I would like to see all those lightweight fights get made. And, you know, I would also like to see Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Andrade. Everybody freezes, like I said, Demetrius Andrade out. I think Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Andrade is an incredible fight. I would be so excited for that. And I think Demetrius Andrade has earned it. We haven't seen Jermall Charlo in a while. He needs a fight. It only makes sense that they get it on. And of course, you know, the big heavyweight fight is Anthony Joshua and the Gypsy King. You know what I mean? So, you know, Tyson Fury. So I like to see Fury and Joshua, two British guys, go at it. And so those are the fights that I want to see.
Okay. All right. And how about you, Savon? What would you like to see?
The fights I want to see in 2021 are, of course, I want to see Tank versus Garcia. Got to see that. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I think it's going to be 2022, but I would love to see that. We're just talking about the fights we want to see. Also, I want to see Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford. I feel like that would be a great fight. Or even Devin Haney versus Tank. Like, those fights would be great fights, but like I said, that's just me wishing for great fights. We don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I would love to see it happen.
Those are good ones. Definitely the Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford.
Yeah.
I was listening to Terrence Crawford's trainer say that Terrence Crawford, like, you know, something like deadlifts like 450 or something. Like he's like 130
Dang.
pounds, or not 130. He's probably, less than 150 pounds.
And he deadlifting like that.
Like crazy weight. Like he's like superhuman strength. And it certainly looks like it in the ring. So, and Errol Spence looked like almost like old Errol Spence, even after the accident.
Yeah, that's why I was very impressed with his last fight that he had put out. But like I said, who knows? That's one fight. You got to put them together. It's all about putting together streaks in boxing. So if he can put together a nice little streak, he can get back his claim to fame. But he did his thing last fight, though. Couldn't take nothing away. He dominated. But it's different. Like Terrence Crawford, that's a whole different animal.
I guess the main thing that we have to say is that all of these fights are going to be really good fights. I think a lot of them are going to be competitive. I just don't see a real competitor for Canelo Alvarez, and that's why he's the pound for pound best. We see competitive fights out there, I think, for Terrence Crawford, who I think is probably in that group. I think there's a competitive fight out there, a couple of competitive fights out there, even for Triple G, particularly as he's getting older. I think there are competitive fights for all these guys, but I think for Canelo Alvarez and at the weights that he's fighting, there's nobody who's even close. We saw what he did to Sergey Kovalev and to all these guys, the bigger guys, the smaller guys. There's nobody really out there for him. So, and I don't think Billy Joe Saunders is going to change that.
I definitely don't either. So we can all agree with that one lead. So.
Right.